Here are 10 things that we've learned in game weeks 1 to 3 that will help you with your transfer plans for game week 4. Let's get into it. Okay, so if you're looking for attacks to target in game week 4, you should be looking at the top 5 teams for expected goals. Now, it's no surprise that Liverpool and Man City are first and second. A couple of surprises in here though. Start with Bournemouth because they are the value team. Semenyo, who is someone that I've talked about loads, I think he's the best 5.5 mil option. He's gone up now, but I think you should be looking at him for your team because I think he's just going to continue to return throughout the season. Chelsea, that's a team that not many people are looking at, but Cole Palmer, you know what you're going to get from him. He's got great fixtures coming up, and I couldn't see why his returns wouldn't start flowing in. Obviously, Liverpool and Man City are the teams that you want to target the most, but they come with a price tag. Okay, so on the flip side, looking at the bottom 5 teams for expected goals in the league, you've got Ipswich, Leicester, Crystal Palace, Fulham and Everton. Now, there's not much surprise for Ipswich and Leicester. They're both 20th and 19th respectively, but I am a little surprised by Crystal Palace and Fulham considering the fixtures that they've had and the fact that a lot of people have targeted their teams at the start of the season. And the stats also back this up. Both teams are in the bottom 5 for big chances created this season. So when the fixtures start to look a bit tougher for these teams, it's going to be hard to justify keeping these players in your teams. Quick note on Everton, Dominic Calvert-Lewin's not done too bad. Although they've got good fixtures, I can't see many people targeting Everton moving forward. Okay, so moving on to the top 5 teams for expected goals against, it's no surprise that you got Liverpool first. They're yet to concede under Arne Slot. Then you also got Man City, Nottingham Forest, Spurs and Fulham. One standout here that I definitely think you should be considering, particularly from Game Week 6, is Nottingham Forest. They've got a lot of 4.5 million options, so if you wanted to go for a punt for the next 7 or 8 weeks, they're not a bad option. A quick note on Fulham, because while they perform quite well for expected goals against, I don't think I'll be going near them because their fixtures do get a little bit tougher in the coming weeks. Couple that with the fact that they've had 2 of the promoted sides in their first 3, you probably would have expected their expected goals against to be somewhere near the top. The fact that they've conceded in each of their 3 games is also of course a concern for me. Okay, so for the bottom 5 teams for expected goals against, there's not too many surprises in here again. You've got Ipswich and Southampton, 2 of the promoted sides, both in the bottom 5. You've also got Everton, who have not had a great start to the season. West Ham were 3rd bottom in the league for expected goals against last season, and that's not changed at the start of this season. The one surprise that is in there is Newcastle. Now, Newcastle have been defensively pretty good, particularly in their first season under Eddie Howe, but last season and the start of this season, they've not been great. Considering it's the start of the season, they already look like a team that's quite leggy. The fact that they got so many different options that could start in their defence, I'm not going near them. They also have a terrible fixture run from Game Week 6, so if you're looking to wildcard in Game Week 4 or Game Week 6, definitely wouldn't have any of the defenders in there. Okay, so now let's move on to the specific players. I'm going to start with the defenders and specifically the 4.5 million defenders. And these are 3 players that a lot of people have looked at. I'm going to start with Robinson because although he's conceded in each of his 3 matches, he has got 2 attacking returns. Now I'm just going to say it with Robinson. I didn't want him at the start of the season and I don't want him now because his underlying stats aren't too great. They're not bad for a 4.5 million defender, but 0.06 expected assists. I don't think that's sustainable that he's going to keep returning every game. Rico Lewis is an interesting one. We'll just have to wait and see with him, I think. He started every game so far and he's played 90 minutes in all of his games for Man City. The big question with Rico Lewis is he going to continue to start? I think to find that out, we'll have to wait till Game Week 5. Although he's a great player, it's hard to keep Kyle Walker out of the team. Eventually, Pep is just going to want that recovery pace to stop counter-attacks, and I just think it harms Rico Lewis's minutes long term. Masraoui is another interesting one because United actually don't have that bad fixtures going forward. Now, for expected goals against per 90, he is the worst with 1.45, but you have to remember that he's been playing the likes of Liverpool and Brighton who have looked really good going forward. He's not someone that I look at transferring in this week, but he's definitely someone that's on my radar. Now, the best 6 million defenders, these ones are a bit more obvious. You've got Robertson, Saliba, Vardiol. I think for these 3 players, they're really just fixture dependent. Arsenal have kept 2 clean sheets, but interestingly, their expected goals against per 90 is 1.19. Man City have the best expected goals against per 90 with 0.65. They are frustrating because they do just find a way to concede, like that Ipswich game in Game Week 2. That really hurt when I had Edison in goal. The goal they conceded against West Ham was just a cross into the box and an own goal. It is frustrating, but long term they will get clean sheets, so don't panic. As for Arsenal, they have tougher fixtures coming up. Now I do do have Saliba and Raya, I'm really gambling on them keeping a clean sheet against Tottenham. And the reason for that is because a lot of people are looking at Arsenal defenders from game week 6 onwards. So if they were to keep a clean sheet in game week 4, that's potentially 12 points that no one else will have. Now, it's not going to be particularly easy for Arsenal to keep a clean sheet in that game, but Tottenham haven't exactly been firing on all cylinders. Now, they also have Man City in game week 5, but it's worth noting that they also kept 2 clean sheets against Man City last season. But I certainly think from game week 6 onwards, Arsenal defenders will punish you if you don't have them. If I had to choose the best 6 million defender, it would be Robertson at the moment. His ownership's quite low at 6.2%, but he's got 3 clean sheets on the trot. He also has the best stats going forward with 0.25 expected goal involvements per 90. With the fixtures that Liverpool have coming up, I think a double-digit haul is coming for Robertson. Okay, so moving on to the best cheap midfielders. Now, I'm not going to talk about Morgan Rogers because by game week 10, everyone's going to have him in their team anyway because he's so attacking and he's only 5 million. But for 5.5 million, you do have some different options in midfield. These are the 3 5.5 million midfielders that I've picked out, and there's no surprise to the one that I think you should be getting this week, Semenyo. He plays more minutes and he's got better stats per 90 with 0.83 expected goal involvements. To put that into context, he's actually outperforming Cole Palmer, and to get that sort of value for a 5.5 million midfielder is just incredible. Got better fitness, and I think he's someone that I'll be holding for most of the season. A note on Smith Rowe, I think he's a phenomenal player. He's very highly owned. His points per match really isn't that bad for a 5.5 million midfielder. We've seen in the opening 3 game weeks that his minutes have been managed quite a lot, but a couple more blanks and perhaps an injury, I could see his value going down significantly. I think Smith Rowe is a player that might just give you a headache in a few game weeks time. Okay, so talking about the best mid-range midfielders, there's only really 2 that I want to talk about, and that's Eze and Mbeumo. I took a risk with Martinelli in game week 1, and that did not pay off at all. And the fact that he lost his place in game week 3 just tells me not to go anywhere near him. A quick note on Marcus Rashford, he does look a shadow of the player he was, but I could see him getting returns in the next few game weeks because he's got great fixtures. That said, these are the only 2 I'll be looking at for my team, and for me the winner is Mbeumo. Now that Tony's left, he's on penalties, he's going to be the main man, and his stats actually outperform Eze. He's got 0.61 expected goal involvements per 90 compared to Eze's 0.44 expected goal involvements. He's got 8 points per match, and he's also got a much lower ownership with 7.7%, which makes him a bit more differential. A quick note on the shots, because Eze's got more shots and more shots in the box. When you look at the shot zones, Mbeumo actually looks to be taking shots in better positions. A lot of Eze's shots and shots in the box have come from difficult angles, whereas Mbeumo's been a bit more central. So for now, Mbeumo's the winner for me, but it is close, and I do think Eze's returns will improve over the season. Okay, so moving on to the best cheap forwards, there's only really 2 that I'm going to be looking at. There is a case to put Danny Welbeck in this conversation as well. So when he starts, he seems to play number 9, which pushes João Pedro out wide. He's also outperformed João Pedro in the first 3 game weeks. That being said, João Pedro does have penalties, and that's why I've gone for him in my team. I got João Pedro at 5.5, but sadly budget is a thing, and I would go for Jan Wisser if I had the choice. Wisser's gone under the radar a little bit, and that's why his ownership's a lot lower. But he's got 7 points per match, and his stats just suggest that that's going to continue. 0.77 expected goals per 90, 0.1 expected assists per 90. These are great stats for a 6 million forward. So if budget allows, I'd go for Jan Wisser. If not, João Pedro is still a great pick. A big talking point from game weeks 1 to 3 is that Salah and Haaland are neck and neck, tied on 41 points. Salah made me look a fool in game week 3 when I said his returns might slow down, but then hits me with a 17 pointer. It's worth noting though, I do still stand by that. I said that a lot of Salah's returns will come from the press and transition, and that's exactly how every one of those returns in that game came about. It'd be more interesting to see this week when they play Nottingham Forest at home, because there won't be as much transition because Nottingham Forest are just going to sit and park the bus. Whereas at Old Trafford, United couldn't really be seen to not try and win that game. Nottingham Forest look quite good defensively. Salah's not going to have as much space, so it will be quite telling this week to see if Salah's returns will continue. Haaland's got 7 goals in 3 games. It's also worth noting that I don't think his returns will continue in that manner either, though I do think City will always create chances for him. Moving forward, I'm going to have just one of them in my team. I've gone for Haaland, but to make a case for Salah, Salah's listed as a midfielder, so he'll get 5 points per goal. Salah's also a lot more creative, so he'll get more assists. Liverpool also look really good defensively, so there's going to be a lot of clean sheet points coming in for Salah. Salah's also 2.5 million cheaper, which may allow you to strengthen your squad elsewhere. For me, I've gone for Haaland because I think he will just deliver consistency. You just know that Man City are always going to create chances for Haaland. You don't necessarily know that with Salah. It's also shown in the stats. He's got 1.26 expected goal goals per 90 compared to Salah's 0.58. Now those numbers will come down against stronger opposition, which actually Man City have in the next few game weeks, but I'm going to gamble that over the season Haaland will outperform Salah. So there's 10 things that we've learned in game weeks 1 to 3. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit subscribe for my transfer tips later in the week. Hit like if you've enjoyed the video, it really does help the channel grow. That's all from me, I'll see you in the next video.